Surviving the Game as a Barbarian, Chapter 774, the 13th month 1/9. The long funeral service, which somehow still felt too short, came to an end. The bodies of the warriors who could be recovered were deposited in the forest, according to the traditions of the tribe. As for those whose bodies were not in a condition to be brought back, their names were collected and honored together in a collective memorial. The humans, on the other hand, were given services according to their own customs. A deep pit was dug in the ground for the bodies to be buried, and a tombstone was placed to mark the grave. "Will this really be okay?" someone muttered. "If he's buried here, in barbarian lands, then..." I was a little worried about this too, but surprisingly, James Calla's family wanted him buried here. They said something about there being no other place to bury him in Raftania anyway. Only the nobles who could afford a plot in Tree Gnome were buried there. Most were cremated and their ashes stored in their homes. "You know, another female voice stammered beside me. "I think he'll like it better this way, being buried next to his allies." All he did was work. I glanced at Calla's younger sister, who was staring at her brother's grave with teary eyes. "I don't think so. We're talking about the guy who went out drinking but always left early for home because he couldn't bear to keep you waiting." "Ah, so my brother was." She broke down in sobs. As I watched her, a thought struck me. Why did the truth only come out when it was too late? Were mortals doomed to never realize what they had until it was gone? There was no way of knowing, and the question remained as I slowly turned my head. There, right next to James Calla, was another grave, that of Versil Gallant. Her birth date and recent death date were engraved on the headstone. Unlike Calla, however, whose resting place was surrounded by relatives near and far, no one from the family had come to hers. And I knew exactly why. After all, we were allies. The reason I cut off contact with my family, just because they were getting in the way of my adventurous life. Even though that was the reason she gave, I knew it wasn't the truth. The truth was that the Gallans were not his real family. It wasn't the fear of being discovered as an evil spirit that drove her away, but rather the torture of having to pretend to be part of that family after taking over their daughter's body. That's why I said some harsh things when I left them. Well, even after that, I still decided to pay their taxes. I don't regret it. It wasn't that much money either. I would need to look into that after this was all over. Versil's wealth should go to her family. The clan was not in financial difficulty, and legally speaking, it was only fair that the deceased's assets should be given to their closest relatives. I stood before the grave, lost in thought, until Sven Perev murmured softly beside me. "May you be guided to where you want to be." It was a simple prayer, devoid of embellishments, but I understood its true meaning and shared the same sentiment. After all, we both knew where they really came from. Vuong. But seriously, was he some kind of saint or something? Even without using a skill, his voice seemed to carry a mysterious authority, as if it were imbued with divine power. Whenever he prayed fervently, like now, his body would glow with a subtle white light. I turned my attention beyond Galland's grave to where Rotmiller lay. The dwarf was drinking right in front of the grave, while Misha sniffed softly, suppressing her anger. A little further away stood Shaven Emor, silent, staring at the grave with a gaze devoid of any hope. Normally, I would have stepped aside to give her space, but remembering the words Rotmiller had left me, I went over to her. She didn't say anything when I approached, so I got the message and just stood there by her side. It took a while before Shaven finally spoke. "Mr. Yandel, it would be strange if I cried, wouldn't it?" "What do you mean, Mr. Rotmiller and we were nothing, really." "Ah, so that was it." I couldn't deny that their relationship was over before it even began. "I'm jealous," she admitted. "Miss Karlstein over there, and Mr. Hikurad. They were on his team. They can cry all they want, but I cut her off. And what does it matter? I actually spent some time debating whether I should tell Shaven about the will Rodmiller left me, without being able to decide. But seeing her now, the decision was made for me. Before he died, Rodmiller told me to take care of you, I revealed, taking her by surprise. What? Not from Misha. Not from that dwarf. Not from anyone else. He told me to treat you well. Shaven bit his lip, trying to hold back the tears. But what? I sighed and held his shoulder. So what difference does it make what kind of relationship you had? If you're sad, cry. If you're happy, smile. You're now a member of our tribe too. Can I? Is it really okay? I responded with a silent nod, and only then did Shaven allow the tears to fall. Her shoulders shook with shaky breaths at first, but as time passed, she was soon crying openly. I hid my hands in my pockets and clasped them together. No matter how many times I went through it, it never got easier. After the funeral, I returned to the palace to talk to Astaroth about how Ragna was dealing with his pseudo-imprisonment and what to do about Eltora. However, I can't let either of them appear in public. Not yet. Why? I asked. The decision regarding Countess Peprock's position lies solely with Her Majesty. I knew that when I asked. All I'm saying is that I'll take care of her until he makes a decision. Impossible. And why? Why would the royal family's actions need a reason? Wow. He was incredibly adamant about these things. And he acted so relaxed at other times. In any case, it looked like I would have to delay Ragna's departure from the palace. And why can't Eltora leave? He is the son of a traitor. If we release him now, things could get complicated in unpredictable and unnecessary ways. But don't worry, there is no denying that he contributed greatly to the war. As I promised, I will do everything possible to ensure that he stays alive. Well, that's it then. I've done what I could, now I leave the rest to him. I didn't really care that much about what happened to Eltora, so I didn't pursue the matter. Can I at least see Ragna one last time before I go? I asked. You can, but it won't make a difference. She hasn't woken up yet. Yes, still. Do you still want to see her? When we finish our conversation. It seems you still have a lot to say. I mean, with the state of the world, there's no way around it. Astaroth smiled at that and tilted the teapot to refill my half-empty teacup, his way of signaling that he was willing to continue the conversation. Knowing him, though, there was no way of knowing when he would decide to end it, so I decided to prioritize the most important questions first. The labyrinth, will it be reopened? Why are you asking me this? This is a decision for the next elected prime minister. Don't mess with me. I can't say exactly when, but the labyrinth will be reopened in the near future. We're also at our limit, after all, having not been able to collect mana stones for a year. Sonoark is also going to invade the labyrinth. Is there any plan for that? A farmer doesn't stop planting for fear of pests. In other words, you have nothing. Isn't that something the working class should deal with? He dismissed. Noticing the look I gave him, he sighed and added, there will be certain restrictions. Being barred from entry if you're below a certain rank or have no connection to the military, something like that. These countermeasures are also being discussed at the palace meetings. I understand. Speaking of which, why didn't you attend the last one? If you're curious about these things, you should just join in. I had other things to take care of. Although my answer was firm, if vague, I was a little surprised. He knew exactly where I was and what I was doing, without a doubt, and yet he was asking me these questions. What a strange fellow. I'll give you some advice, Bjorn Yandel. I shivered as I saw his expression suddenly harden. Did he read my mind or something? From what he told me next, however, I didn't need to worry about that. Which didn't mean I understood. It will soon be the 13th month, he continued. By His Majesty's decree, this month always has a great festival, and considering the times we live in, we need it more than ever. Oh, I really didn't know that. So what? I asked, hoping he would explain what this had to do with me. Astaroth narrowed her eyes before putting down her teacup. Rest for now. What was this? Was he worried about me? But it didn't make sense. I'm already resting well, you know, I said evasively. Running all the way to the palace to ask me these questions right after a funeral is what you call rest. He countered immediately. When I fell silent, he continued, I will inform you of any new information we learn about the labyrinth or the war. Until then, you need to rest, Bjorn Yandel. I had no answer, not because I couldn't think of one, but because his sudden concern was too disconcerting for me. When I remained silent, still speechless, he drank his hot tea in one gulp, apparently as embarrassed as I was. That ends our conversation. Go now. Oh, but you can speak to the man at the entrance about Countess Peprock. He will guide you to her. Well, I didn't know what to say about that. Sure, even Astarota had changed since we first met. As soon as my conversation with Astarota ended, I went to visit Ragna. As I was told, she was still asleep. I took the opportunity to talk to Hyunbyul about a few things and then left. Oh, and Eltora showed up halfway through to complain about how long he would be stuck there, but that wasn't really important. Rest, huh? He couldn't get this thought out of his head as he left the palace and returned to the sacred land. Could I really afford to rest? Beko suddenly declared himself the protagonist. Noark's army was still resisting in the neighboring district, and I didn't even know when the king would wake up. No way. In fact, after returning to the Holy Land, I did everything but rest. In summary, I visited the non-human Noble Alliance, Melbeth, to see if they had any new information. I attended the palace meetings whenever they were called to assess the political situation. I met with powerful nobles such as Count Almanus to establish contacts, and even met with Sven Perev to discuss his new abilities. I had a drink with Mr. Bear after a long time, and whenever I could, I fulfilled my duties as chief of the tribe. Although shaven, Emor was taking care of this work in my absence, she also needed rest. Besides, I could handle everything on my own. My schedule is pretty full. Time passed quickly as I dealt with my tight schedule, rushing around the city. Interestingly, however, my body and mind were not exhausted. This barbaric body is too strong to tire itself with manual labor. Besides, keeping myself busy is easier, as I am not distracted by other thoughts. The people around me, especially Amelia, wanted me to rest, as Astarota suggested, but I either avoided the topic or politely declined. However, eventually, I ran out of excuses. Yandel. Amelia came into my tent while I was working late into the night to finish some unfinished business as chief of the tribe. You know the festival starts tomorrow morning, right? She asked. Of course. That's why I'm busy right now. Our warriors have worked hard, so they need time to enjoy themselves. But what about you? My schedule tomorrow. After the tribe festival, I need to visit the imperial capital in the evening. It seems that Count Almanus is organizing an event and said he would donate generously to our clan if I attended. Enough of that. Amelia interrupted me and suddenly threw something at me. I looked down and saw that it was a piece of clothing. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, she said. Put this on and go out with me. No, but like I said, I already have plans for tomorrow. The choice is yours. But if you don't go, I'm leaving the clan. In other words, it wasn't my choice. Surviving the game as a barbarian. Chapter 775, the 13th month 2/9. Once again, I found myself walking through the ruins of District 7, this time wearing the special outfit Amelia had gifted me. As he walked through the uneven streets, though calling them streets in this state would be generous, soldiers hurried about their duties, oblivious to the random passerby walking among them. Well, not entirely indifferent. They would cast furtive glances in my direction, but then quickly return to their business, shrugging as if they had made a mistake. All thanks to the clothes I was wearing. The scarlet gala dress. Much like the golden mask I had once obtained in the Bloody Citadel, my outfit was a piece of equipment that could only be acquired within a rift. It offered no stat bonuses or combat effects, only the ability to alter the wearer's physical appearance as desired. Even so, it was quite a rare item, as it could only be found in the rifts on the 9th floor. Also, the conditions to activate the hidden secret are quite strange, so you can't get it just by getting there. I thought it would be useful to have one around, so I made sure to check the auction house and ask everyone I knew, but since waking up in this body, I've never seen one of these put up for sale. And somehow Amelia had just gotten one. No wonder I was surprised when she gave it to me. No, but seriously, where did you get this? I pressed her again, unable to contain my curiosity. Her face trembled slightly, and she let out a small sound. At first, I thought she was getting irritated by my incessant questions, but then I realized it was the exact opposite. She was taking her time to savor the moment, enjoying my astonishment too much to respond right away. "It's nothing," he said nonchalantly. "Why are you so curious? I've looked everywhere for this, and then you just show up with one out of nowhere. How could I not be curious?" Satisfied with my reaction, Amelia finally relented. I asked Astaro to Baron. I wanted to know if they had one available and if I could borrow it. Well, it was from the palace, after all. If anyone had one of those lying around, it would be them. The truth was much less intriguing than I had expected, but a part of me was touched. She went to the trouble of going after that guy, just because of me. It cost. Amelia hesitated for a moment and then said, "Don't mention it." "So, if I say I lost, what are the chances I can keep it?" She gave me a withering look. "Do you think something like that would work on him?" Well, he was kind of malleable sometimes. But still, better not to risk it. A little dejected, I grumbled, "I guess we'll just have to return it later." Good choice. Nothing good will come of complicating things. The palace already has a reputation for charging twice what it offers. We continued talking, changing the subject as we walked through District 7, and that alone was enough to dispel the cloud that hung over me. The only visible change in me was my height, reduced to the size of an ordinary human, but no one recognized me. That is good, and yet, despite this strange sense of freedom, my heart grew heavier with every step. District 7, the place I had come to call home, was destroyed once again, now in an even worse state than after the first invasion. The eastern region was blackened, completely devoid of color because of the fires, and the central part of the district had been obliterated by 2 strikes from thunder. Well, I think it's still in better shape than District 8. Wasn't that one burned to the ground? In any case, the war this time had swallowed up several districts, and with District 4 completely lost to Noark, this small town had become even smaller. The remaining districts were so overcrowded with displaced citizens that the palace was even considering temporarily opening the gnome tree. But a festival now, of all times. I couldn't help but wonder what the purpose of the event was. The refugees who had lost their homes certainly wouldn't be in the mood to celebrate. So what was it for those who had lost nothing? Or, I suppose, for those who lost less. I didn't know, but to be honest, I didn't care about the festivities. I just wanted to get back to work. The problem was, we had someone in our group who said she would leave the clan if I didn't go to the festival with her. There's no way. One thought stayed with me as I looked at the city reduced to ash and rubble. It may all seem beyond recovery now, but in the end, they always rebuild. As they always did. District 5 was already in full festive euphoria when we arrived. This didn't surprise me, but I admit that a part of me expected the mood to be a little more somber because of the war. However, the streets were crowded with people and the air was vibrant with the excited voices of merchants and customers. It was an unusual sight, to say the least. District 5 was the only one, besides District 4, that had become a major battlefield. Naturally, reconstruction efforts were still ongoing. Watch your step. There's a huge hole just ahead. On the outskirts of the district, destroyed streets and collapsed buildings were still a common sight, but for some reason, the people who filled the streets early in the morning were all smiling, enjoying the festival. I decided to accompany them. These people deserve to enjoy this. Participants probably came to forget about reality, even if only for a fleeting moment. And if the chance to escape their worries for a day wasn't enough to entice them, the free alcohol and generous portions of food, courtesy of the palace, certainly were. Yandel, what are you doing? Hurry up. Oh, right, I shook my head to snap out of my reverie. I'm going. Even after we entered District 5, Amelia insisted on leading the way, still dragging me behind her. I could only assume she had some plan for today's event. Wait, Amelia grabbed my hand when I stopped and pulled me along to keep walking. Don't tense up, just keep walking. It'll be hard to find each other if we get separated in this sea of people, especially with how short you are now. Oh, of course. Convinced by the threat of getting lost in the crowd, I gave up resisting and let Amelia guide me through the streets. After a while, I asked, Emily, where exactly are we going? Wherever our feet take us. Wait, what? You don't have a plan? There was a pause. Everyone should enjoy things like this once in a while. Yes, but I thought she had something specific in mind. I even cleared my schedule to make sure I could do whatever it was with her. Well, I guess that's not so bad. Although the revelation took me a bit by surprise, wandering aimlessly wasn't the worst way to spend the day. We people watched, nibbled on snacks whenever something caught our eye, and even popped into a few stores to browse before the rising prices made us back out. A 3-step transformation toy. From goblin to orc and then from orc to ogre. This led us to the special sale at Almanus Shopping Center, where I got scolded by Amelia for wasting money on useless things. Even without a plan, time passed quickly as we walked around together. At the end of the day, we ended up going to a bar for dinner. Of course it's Bjorn Yandel, you brat. We walked in to find a drunk customer yelling in the middle of a heated debate with his friend. They happened to be sitting near our table, and since they were talking about me, I couldn't help but eavesdrop, becoming more intrigued by the second. Is there any adventurer now who has achieved as much as Baron Yandel? The only reason we can laugh and drink now is because he went there and killed that traitorous wretch. I agree that he has done great deeds. But I find it hard to believe that Baron Yandel is the strongest. Wasn't the great navigator Pikma a hero of the same kind? He performed great deeds, but his combat skills left something to be desired. Pikma, did you just compare Baron Yandel to a mere navigator? I'm just giving an example. The two were arguing about who was the strongest. Fortunately, they weren't arguing about who was the best in history, just who held the title in the present. No, I still think Baron Yandel did enough to be considered the strongest, the drunkard insisted. Other customers began to join in the conversation. Yes, everyone thought he was only good at fighting, but this time he proved that he is strong in other ways too. I heard he defeated Demon Eye. Is that true? And the corpse collector too. He even survived multiple thunder blasts. The discussion was quickly resolved when almost everyone agreed with the same opinion. Looks like it caught your attention. Oh, sorry, he said, turning his focus back to Amelia. I just thought it was interesting. So, people's image of me had changed. I had already been praised for my leadership skills, sacrificial mindset, courage, and achievements as an adventurer, and now, my combat power was also being recognized. To be fair, I have never defeated a strong opponent in a public duel until now. The battles in the Goblin Forest and the expedition to Frost Rock were far from duels. But defeating the infamous Demon Eye in front of all those spectators proved my skills. Amelia shook her head. This topic interests me as well. So, what do you think? Do you think their assessment is correct? Arg, Why did she have to ask something so embarrassing? I smiled and got straight to the point. Well, they're not wrong. Now, I was sure that I wouldn't lose to anyone. My tour with Amelia started early in the morning and ended in the early evening, but by the time we returned to the sacred land, it was already late at night. After rinsing off lightly and changing my clothes, I left the tent to walk. I didn't have a specific destination in mind. I just wanted to enjoy the outdoors and walk, and before I knew it, I had arrived. To my surprise, someone was already there. Hikurod. Oh, Yandel, it's you. I saw you leaving earlier today when we were heading to the festival. When did you get back? Not long ago. I wanted to clear my head, but it didn't turn out as I expected. What about you? I hesitated. I think it helped me a little. Haha. Good to know. The dwarf's back seemed smaller today, for some reason. I sighed and sat down next to him. You have one more bottle, right? Give me one. Do you have a glass? Do you carry a glass with you? Haha. I really can't beat you. He handed me the bottle, and we sat in silence for a while, each of us taking a sip. Eventually, Hikurod broke the silence. Do you remember what we saw on our first time on the third floor? Dwaki. Huh, you're talking about when he got scared. An innocent friend. Being attacked by a looter was what made him realize that reality did not match his imagination. Every adventurer learns this at some point. That's why Rodmiller woke everyone up in the middle of the night to comfort him. I probably wanted him to know that even with the sadness and suffering in the labyrinth, there are also good things. It's hard to believe that years have passed since that day. I looked at the bottle. I feel the same way. Our conversation ceased again, and we drank in silence for a while longer. The dwarf was the first to speak again. It's getting a little cold now that I'm getting dizzy. I'll go back first. With that, he staggered away, leaving me alone for a while longer before returning to the room prepared for me in the sacred land. But for some reason, someone was also waiting for me there. Misha, what are you doing at this hour? Misha Karlstein, one of the 3 remaining original members of Team Injured, and my first, albeit fruitless, love. I guess technically speaking, I guess she's not my first love. Maybe it was the late night drink, but for a moment I got sentimental about the idea of love. Take some time off tomorrow for me, he suddenly declared. I want to go somewhere with you. I blinked. If you don't go, I'll leave the clan too. What the hell? Misha disappeared from my sight before I could recover from the shock and respond. I sighed. What was going on here? Did everyone have a secret bulletin board of their own? At least tell me what time to meet you tomorrow, I muttered to nothing. Well, I better just wake up early. Surviving the game as a barbarian. Chapter 776, the 13th month 3/9. My trip with Misha was very different from the one I had with Amelia. She had a very tight, planned schedule. Grant it, and so it began, at 7 in the morning. I had only 20 minutes to wash, dress, and leave the Holy Land. I barely made it to the deadline, and when I left, I found Misha staring at me with a blank expression. Shall we go? I asked cautiously. Yes, he answered almost robotically. Then, he seemed to regain his composure. Wait, come here. Wow, now that you're lower, I can see your face. Also, before, I could only see your chin because of the angle, he admitted with a satisfied chuckle. Then he pulled me close to the wall. Come quickly. The carriage is waiting for us. Apparently, Misha had already booked transportation in advance, as a carriage was waiting for us at the top of the wall. Once we settled in, we began to quickly travel its length. Speaking of which, the wall chariot, previously for military use only, was now available to civilians with proper permission. Due to the destruction in Districts 7 and 8, the carriages could not follow their usual routes. So even taking a slight detour, traveling through the wall was much faster. It felt like I was back on a highway. The distance covered was greater, Yes, but the lack of traffic and obstacles along the city walls allowed us to move much faster. Can I get some sleep? I asked groggily. Sure. I'll wake you up when we get there. Luckily, Misha let me sleep during the trip, and when I blinked my sleep-blurred eyes again, we were already in District 5. She laughed. I figured you'd wake up now because of hunger. Are you a psychic or something? What are you talking about? Let's go. Let's eat meat first. Although it was the same old District 5, Misha took me to the eastern area, which had suffered far less from the war than the western area, which bordered District 4. The streets were relatively clean, and the buildings seemed to be mostly intact. If we go any further east than that, we'll reach the gnome tree. I thought about this as I followed Misha, but it wasn't long before her confident steps slowed to a near stop. It must be around here. Are you lost? No, it's just that there are a lot of people. What's the address? After picking him up from Misha, I took on the role of guide. Right, 300 Raymond Street, that should be it. We reached our destination less than 5 minutes after I took the lead, causing Misha to exclaim in surprise. Bjorn, you're pretty good at navigating the city, huh? I'm decent at it. I even got some recognition lessons from Rodmiller too. When I stopped mid-sentence, Misha blushed, looking like she had made a grave mistake in bringing up the subject. It was a bit weird. She probably brought me here to cheer me up too. It doesn't matter. Let's go in right away, he said, quickening his pace. I'm hungry because you got lost on the way. Oh, yes, of course. Let's go. I'll pay for everything. We entered the first establishment on Misha's list, only to be met with a familiar face at the entrance. Mrs. Bear. There is. Who? Oh. She looked up from the counter at the entrance and looked confused for a moment before her eyes widened. Why Yan? Shish. What happened? I almost didn't recognize you. You were so small. It's a magical tool. But why are you here? This is the establishment of an acquaintance of mine. They needed help during the festival, so I came to lend a hand. And where is Abman? He came to work, of course. The salon needs people too. Oh, he went out for a moment to get some ingredients, but he should be back soon. I understood. Well, they probably needed the money since they were raising 3 kids. From what I heard, their store was completely destroyed in the war, and they couldn't even count on the profits from the maze since it was still closed. Still, seeing a third-tier adventurer doing such work, at least I wouldn't have to worry about any problems while he was here. Sit at the back, in the corner. It must be the quietest place. Thank you for your generosity. After leading us to our seat, Mrs. Bear walked away without even taking our order. About the request. Don't worry, I'll bring you the best. And you don't have to pay. But we owe you a lot after everything that has happened. If you want to thank someone, thank Lord Periv. Okay, I understand. Misha looked a little dejected that her attempt to buy me lunch had been thwarted, but there was no way around it. Refusing Mrs. Bear's generosity would only make everything more uncomfortable. But don't worry, I'll pay at the next store we go to. Yes. While we waited for the food to arrive, I chatted with Misha. So this was where you wanted to come? Yes. It's pretty cool, right? I ended up laughing at his calm response. Why the store where Abman works? I mean, since we're out having fun, why not take the opportunity to see our friends too? It was a response I would have expected from the ever-outgoing Barbarian Einar. But then again, Misha had always been a person who enjoyed being around others. So you're here. Mr. Bear's booming voice interrupted us at some point, and he approached our table with the food. The couple somehow seemed to understand my tastes perfectly, as 80% of the dishes were meat, not to mention the absurdly large portions, too much for just 2 people. Asking for another round of this would be embarrassing, right? Well, if we were paying, I wouldn't hesitate to ask for more. Abman, I called. If you're not busy, sit with us. I wouldn't mind taking a break from work. Are you sure, Mr. Bear looked at Misha for permission, and she readily accepted. And so, the meal began. Naturally, the topic of the day was the war, more specifically, Sven Perev. I don't know what you think of him, but Perev is a true hero. They say he let everyone escape and stayed behind in the temple to buy time. That kind of determination isn't something most people have. The Sven Perev that Mr. Bear described was completely foreign to me. I had heard this story several times now, even from the man himself, but he's not the type to do that. Was there something wrong with him? It was a puzzle whenever I heard this story, but I didn't rule out the possibility. People change. I certainly have. Eating together like this reminds me of the old days. If you were going to come, why didn't you bring Einar too? Einar is busy these days, so no, Misha quickly dismissed. Busy? Doing what? I think she's writing an autobiography. Is Einar here? My incredulous expression mirrored Mr. Bear's. Misha, what are you talking about? I asked. I had never heard anything about it, and Misha didn't seem to know many details either. I don't really know, but I think she realized something during the war. She kept saying that memories fade over time and that she needed to record them while she could still remember. I understand. This time, Mr. Bear and I exchanged a look of disbelief. I had no idea what Einar was up to, but that only made the whole thing seem all the more believable. From our perspective, Einar doing incomprehensible things was definitely normal. He cleared his throat. Still, it seems like she can write well enough to be the author of her own biography. This guy didn't even say he wanted to read what she was writing. Well, I was in the same boat too. But even if Einar can't come, I invited one more person. The last person. Who else could it be but me? Said a new voice. Arg, what a scare. Raven. My eyes widened as I noticed the small mage who had appeared beside the table. What are you doing here? And after all the trouble I went through trying to get in touch with her after the war. Miss Karlstein called me. I came to relax a bit and enjoy the festival. Can I sit here? Oh, sure. It's been a while, hasn't it? After receiving permission, Raven sat down next to Mr. Bear and gave him a smirk. Why all the weirdness? He cleared his throat. There's nothing strange about me. To be fair, the two hadn't seen each other in quite some time. After the group disbanded, Raven only kept in touch with me. It seemed like they hadn't spoken to each other, but they still had an understanding of each other's circumstances. How is life in the magical troops? You even received the title of Golden Mage. It sucks. I don't know why these incidents started right after I joined. What keeps me from handing in my resignation every day is a mere sense of duty, you know. And you, Mr. Yurik Fried, isn't the Golden Tree clan quite famous? It has a good reputation. The Bear Lord shivered slightly before letting out an awkward laugh. Ah, the clan, right, it's a decent clan. Everyone at the table, myself included, tilted their heads in confusion. There was something strange about the way he spoke. Is there a problem in his clan? I didn't know, but I didn't ask either. If he didn't want to talk about it, I would just wait until he felt comfortable bringing it up. Raven and Misha seemed to think the same way. It's a good thing Einar isn't here. If she had been, she would have definitely ignored the mood and asked directly, without noticing the change in tone, or, well, whether she would have even noticed the change in mood was another question in itself. By the way, Raven, he said, making a quick decision to save the environment, what have you been doing all this time to be so hard to find? Me, my master passed away, so I've been busy sorting out everything related to that. Damn, what the hell? It felt like I had stepped on a landmine, but after a moment I just let the feeling pass. Yeah, we're not strangers after all. I knew both Mr. Bear and Raven. Being so tense wasn't like me, and it saddened me to realize how far apart we'd grown as we each went our separate ways. My condolences. Misha and Mr. Bear expressed their condolences soon after, and the matter ended there. You should have called us if something like this happened, I argued gently. Well, it wasn't exactly a happy occasion. Besides, Mr. Yandel, you didn't even like my master that much. It's not that I didn't like him. But it's not that I liked it either. That old man was strangely obsessed with evil spirits. Since the subject was on the table, Raven must have felt the need to give more details about what happened. Do you know how the war ended up taking on enormous proportions this time? The palace sent the tower's wizards as soldiers. You can already imagine what happened. He died in combat. A short explanation, as if he didn't want to go into the subject in depth. I understand. Regardless of whether I liked him or not, I still had a connection with that man. It felt strange to hear such news so suddenly and casually. And whether I liked it or not, he was someone important to Raven. Anyway, after my master passed away and his position became vacant, I became extremely busy. So, I'm sorry I didn't come see you sooner. You don't need to apologize. Those who fall behind always end up busier. Haha, it really does seem that way. Raven gave a bitter smile, took a large sip of her drink, and then leaned forward, resting her face on the table. Then he pushed his face towards me. I'm asking just in case, Mr. Yandel. Do you need a mage? But what is this now? Surviving the game as a barbarian. Chapter 777. The 13th month, 4/9. Although the offer came out of the blue, it wasn't a bad proposal in and of itself. Putting aside any emotions and just looking at it realistically, Versal's absence had left a vacancy in our clan for a mage. Of course, we still had Brown Lilith, but when we resumed expeditions in the future, the size of the clan would require us to split into at least 2 groups, so we would definitely need more mages. And here was Raven, volunteering on her own. She was a high-level mage, and I'd even tried to recruit her a few times in the past. Of course I'll accept it. But I still needed to confirm one thing. Regardless of whether she joined the clan or not, I considered her an ally first and foremost. What is this, exactly? I asked gently, putting the subject of recruitment aside for the moment. Are you okay? Maybe it was because I had just heard her talk about the loss of her master. Her sudden change of heart worried me. I am fine. Then why are you suddenly saying you want to leave the magic troops? Raven hesitated for a moment, seeming to consider what to say, before finally replying bitterly, I want revenge. With my own hands. Revenge? You mean, against the one who killed your master? Yes, I understood. It was an understandable motivation. There wasn't much those left behind could do. Who was it? I asked. One of the members of Orkul's. He revealed himself for the first time in this war, and has yet to make a name for himself. She went on to explain what little was known about him, but that he was extremely skilled, far too skilled to be a new member, and that he seemed to hold a high position within Orkul's. A super rookie who came out of nowhere. I didn't waste time wondering where someone like that could have come from. I already knew the answer. Just like the ones who chased us on the Frozen Rock expedition. In the past, Noark had spent over a year trying to clear the 8th floor, a process that had created many high-level adventurers in a short period of time. They had used high-level essences, even second-level ones, and demonstrated overwhelming firepower. Of course, their builds were not balanced, as they lacked low-level essences. Either way, whoever killed Raven's master was probably raised the same way. I sighed and spoke clearly. Raven, if revenge is your goal, then I think you should stay in the magical troops. Our top priority is survival. If the palace sends us to the front lines, I will do everything I can to prevent it. Do you understand? I understand, but I won't change my mind. What? You were trying to avoid combat, but you still had to fight a lot, right? Even against the demon eye. I guess so, but my intuition is telling me that if I join your group, I'll have a better chance of getting my revenge. And much faster, too. I tried to say something, but Raven raised her hand to interrupt me. And if I stay in the magic troops, I'll have to follow the orders of the higher-ups, right? Even if he shows up, if I don't get the order, I won't be able to do anything but sit around and wait. So, how about it? There was no way to counter Raven's reasoning after that, nor could he find a reason to refuse her. Well, except for one thing. The words Loran Vivian left me. I don't know if you know, but there's a first-level black magic called Future Vision, and I used it. She told me that she used Future Sight to see that on the day the imperial capital of Karnan would burn, Raven would betray me. In the end, the Palace of Glory was destroyed by thunder, but Karnan never burned. Raven cheating on me. If what Vivian said was true, bringing Raven into the clan could be dangerous. No, I don't think that would change anything. I realized that if it was going to happen anyway, then it didn't matter whether I accepted her into the clan or not. Okay, he said finally. You can come in. Then go and hand in your letter of resignation to the magical troops first. It will take about a month to sort everything out. No problem. We don't even know when the maze will reopen. And so, the matter of Raven's recruitment was closed. I looked at Misha, who had been showing an expression of discontent for some time now. Do you have a problem with Raven joining the clan? She started before quickly shaking her head. Ah. No way. Aruru is a great magician. She is always welcome. Welcome. Really? But then why did your laugh sound so forced? I stared at her suspiciously, and Misha waved her hands as if to dispel any suspicion. I'm really not nervous or worried. Really, nervous and worried, but I'm sure I just asked if she had a problem with it. After we finished our meal, we talked for another 30 minutes before leaving. We didn't discuss anything too notable other than Raven's recruitment, but if I had to highlight one thing. He has something going on too. Misha wasn't the only one to react strangely to Raven's recruitment. Mr. Bear looked at Raven and me with a strange expression. He looked like he wanted to say something, but he never said a word, not even when we said goodbye. This made me a little uneasy. Well, if it was something important, he would have said so. I couldn't just force the issue if he didn't want to talk about it. I decided I would revisit the topic if he chose to share it later. We're a little late, but let's move on to the next place. I'll drive you there, so tell me the address. But that's not funny. Efficiency always beats fun. Now, hurry up. After the meal, we continued as per Misha's plan. We went to a pottery workshop and tried to make pots. Afterwards, we watched a play near the square and then a circus show. And when the day came to an end, we went to a bar that also functioned as an inn. Do you remember this place? Misha's question came as we finished dinner, and I searched my memory. We came here a long time ago, I replied. Not for anything strange. We came to sell my old adventuring gear and ended up missing the last carriage back, so we had to pay a considerable amount to spend the night here. The rooms had separate living rooms, bedrooms and bathrooms. Lots of windows, terraces, even Studio Arshan 1 soaps and other luxuries. The immaculate condition of the guesthouse gave us a culture shock, and we decided that in the future we would need to earn more money. Bjorn, what it was. Should we sleep here tonight? It's late, and it reminds me of old times. What was she talking about? Don't joke about it, I replied firmly, not wanting to risk any misunderstandings. Sure, Misha probably just wanted to sleep here, but I couldn't do that to her. Maybe if there had never been anything between us, but as things stood, I doubted I'd be able to sleep peacefully. I wasn't kidding. It doesn't matter. Let's go home. And so we ended our tour and returned to the sacred land. It took us a long time to get there, and I spent that time reflecting on yesterday's And today's trips, noticing some differences between them. My walk with Amelia was more like an escape, a moment of freedom, time for myself. Phrases like these described it well. The walk with Misha was about memories and connections with other people. Perhaps the difference was simply in the way each of them dealt with stress. One healed by being alone, while the other healed by laughing and talking with others. Well, it was funny that they thought they could apply the same approach to me. They are like children sometimes. Small children act like this. When their mother is sad, they offer her something they like, a toy, a sweet. But in the end, what makes their mother happy is not the gift, but the gesture of affection. Thwack. Ah, why did you hit me, you barbarian? Now that felt like the old days. I smiled and told her how I really felt. Thank you for today. Huh, thanks. You went out of your way today and took me out because you thought I would be sad. Okay, but if you're grateful, why did you pat me on the back? Don't worry about small details. Anyway, thanks. Well, that's a relief to hear. There was a moment of silence before Misha spoke again, cautiously. But, was it that obvious? I wanted to ask if she really thought she wasn't being obvious, but I held back. Come in and sleep. It's cold. Pull the blanket over you. Whatever. I'll go in first. Ah. Right. Sleep well. After we parted, I went inside, took a quick shower, changed my clothes, and lay down on the bed. However, sleep wouldn't come, and I ended up going out for a walk, like the night before. By chance, I stopped at the same place as before. Brown Rottmiller, Versailles Gowland, James Calla, in front of the graves of the 3 allies I lost in the war. Unlike yesterday, I didn't see the dwarf with his drink. I also didn't see Shaven or Sven Perev, who sometimes appeared around here. I let out a sigh and shifted uncomfortably. Was it strange to be there alone for the first time? Not that it was a bad thing. Whoosh. I felt the cold wind on my skin and sat silently in front of the tombstones for a while. Unlike the dwarf, I didn't take any bottles of booze. Alcohol dulls the senses and makes you lose touch with reality. Besides, I've never been the type to drink alone. I prefer to drink when I'm having fun with friends. But a cigarette? Maybe that would be a good idea. As I just breathed in the cold night air, a thought about cigarettes crossed my mind. I had never smoked in my life. If I had known that I would end up becoming a barbarian, I would have smoked at least once. No. Suddenly, I wanted to ask those who left first. What did you want to do above all else? What sparked your curiosity? What did you regret in the end? Well, that won't change anything now. They are already gone. Rottmiller had a chance to leave something behind, but the other 2 didn't even have that. And because of that, I had no idea what I should do now. I let out another deep sigh. Everything felt suffocating. Every time I dodged a difficult question, another one I had been avoiding for a long time would pop up before me. An evil spirit from another world. After losing 3 of his allies, he will realize the path he must follow. This was what the record stone wrote about my fate, but in reality, I hadn't realized anything. Decide that Beko Lee was my enemy. Was this the path the record stone mentioned? The more I thought about it, the less it seemed like the right answer. So, become king, as the Marquis said. That didn't make sense to me either. At most, it was a fantasy, something I could wish to achieve in the distant future. It wasn't an accomplishment, nor a resolution. So what is it, anyway? I sat there in front of the dark tomb, repeating the question without finding any answers, while the only thing that reached me was the cold night wind. Surviving the game as a barbarian, Chapter 778, the 13th month, 5/9. Which path should I follow? I had yet to find the answer to that question, and yet here I was, walking a path anyway. A path that led me not back to the sacred land of the barbarians, but to the sacred land of another race. Although the general style of the buildings was not much different from that of the city, somehow, they blended perfectly with the surrounding nature. With a slight tilt of my head, I could see where I was as I spotted the immense tree in the distance. The sacred land of the elves, Barbarian. Naturally, the people here were also enjoying the festive atmosphere, but their celebration was quite different from that of the barbarians. Since it was a festival, it wasn't exactly quiet, but there was a sense of order to everything. It started with the background music. The barbarians usually used percussion instruments, such as drums, while here the atmosphere was filled with the soft, crystal-clear sounds of strings. There's no one fighting either. Was that just a cultural difference? It was interesting to see another race's festival. However, Erwin, who was walking with me on the street, seemed quite used to it. "Sir, isn't this an amazing place? Nothing here smells like burning," Erwin exclaimed, more excited about this fact than the festival itself. Well, not that I disagreed. The air really is clean. How did you manage that? Despite the festivals taking place, the Great Fire in District 8 still caused the smell of smoke to permeate the entire city. District 5 had a magic air purification circle running at all times, but even that couldn't eliminate the smell. So how was the air here so pure? Erwin pointed to the tree in the distance. All thanks to Lord Divine Tree there. Outsiders don't know, but Lord Divine Tree has the power of purification. Now that she mentioned it, I remembered something about it. But enough looking around. Let's get over there, Erwin said firmly. Didn't we come here for the festival? What? Why would I do that? There's nothing to do at a boring festival like that. So why did we come? Just follow me. Erwin shot ahead, but since we were still close to the entrance of the Holy Land, we had no choice but to pass through more crowded festival streets. It's the blood spirit. Who is that human next to her? A man who can walk alongside the blood spirit. Is it Baron Yandel? Isn't it too small to be him? Unlike the festival in the city, here we were the center of attention wherever we went, despite my changed appearance. There was the fact that other races were rare in the Holy Land of the elves, but the main reason was the person beside me, too famous to go unnoticed. What a poisonous woman. You abandoned your duty as a pureblood to chase after a man, didn't you? How audacious, to show your face here after turning your back on your own people. Whispers cut through the air, all aimed at Erwin. Traitor, serpent, shame of the race. So that's why she hasn't been visiting the Holy Land lately. A barrage of verbal attacks was thrown at her from all directions. I was debating whether I should say something when I felt Erwin grab my sleeve. Let's keep walking. Yes. There was no point in me taking action if she herself was choosing to remain silent. I held back as much as I could and continued following Erwin. TSC, look at this. Some said that elves were all honest and kind, while others claimed that they were incapable of the cruelty so common among humans. But none of that mattered to me. No matter who it was, if they spoke like that in front of me, they would get punched. Look how she holds that man's hand. She looks like one of those streetlight sluts. Wow. I deactivated the effects of the Scarlet Gala suit and let out a shout as I activated Unite and Gigantification at the same time. Open black lens bracket. You used Wild Explosion. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Your threat level temporarily increases by 3 times, and your physical attributes increase proportionally to the threat level. Close black lens bracket. My threat level was also amplified by the wild blast. The scream I let out echoed in the air, and nothing within a 50-meter radius dared to move. The dozens of people around froze in place, as if they would die if they made any movement. It was ironic. I didn't even use a stun, I just increased my presence. If you were going to act like that, where did you get so much confidence to say that kind of thing? I didn't understand, but I knew that this inexplicable behavior was proof that elves were people too. Fortunately, the barbarians' greatest specialty was dealing with other people. Boom. I walked forward, pushing lightly through the petrified crowd, until I stopped in front of a middle-aged elf who was looking at me with pure terror. EU. He looked like he wanted to say something, but fear strangled his words before they could come out. I spoke directly to him. Repeat that. What did you say about my ally? No response. It was better this way. If he actually repeated it, my hand would be able to move before my brain realized it. Still, noticing that he had a minimum of survival instinct, I gave him some advice. If you want to live a long life, you'd better keep your mouth shut. Aye, I'll do it. The elf nodded frantically as he was given an exit, and the situation ended there. Erwin approached carefully before tugging on my sleeve again. Sir. More whispers crept up behind us. Curse. Why is that man here? But, is it right for him to do this on another people's sacred land? How ignorant. He doesn't even care if this might affect diplomatic relations. Don't mind them, Erwin said, assuming I would respond as well. Let's move on. Quickly. Sure. She led me away, making me feel like a schoolyard bully trying to act tough in front of his girlfriend. But I didn't regret it. They were the ones who made the mistake first. Why should I feel bad about it? If they were going to say something so insulting in front of a barbarian, they should have been ready for the consequences. But it seems like he cares for her because she is his wife. The blood spirit is also quite peculiar. What does she see in a barbarian like that? Arg, seriously, stop. I felt a real sense of regret for Erwin, but I stopped following her and turned to face the people around me. As soon as I did, everyone stopped their conversations and tried to avoid my gaze. They're telling her this because of me. I can't just ignore it. Making a quick decision, I raised my voice for everyone to hear. Listen well. I swear in this place, with all the honor I possess. I, Bjorn, son of Yandel, have never slept with Erwin Fornaci de Terja. I shouted, hoping not to hear any more nonsense from the crowd, but I realized too late that I had said it in a strange way and had to correct myself. Oh, let me make it clear, we never slept together. We just slept, without doing that. I swear on the honor of my mother and father. A barbarian's sincere declaration. But why was everyone quiet? Wasn't I direct enough in saying that I wouldn't do that to her in the future either? But saying it outright was a bit much, even for me. Oh, For a moment, I even considered the extreme option of taking that doll out again, but I immediately discarded the idea. I went straight to plan B. Erwin is a virgin. Of course, that wasn't the best way to put it either. According to the theory of quantum mechanics, since I never witnessed the act, two parallel realities coexisted at the same time. Yes, that probably worked. After this shocking statement, absolute silence took over the street. Let's get out of here, I stuttered, grabbing Erwin's wrist to run away. Something told me I had just made a big mistake. Erwin, I asked when we were already far away. I didn't want things to end like this. No, it's okay. You don't need to try to explain yourself. But, I said it's okay. Was she really okay? If it was Misha or Amelia, I would have been attacked by now. But I didn't hear any anger in her voice. Actually, I'm grateful. You did this for me, right? She asked. Why yes. Then it's all right. But, it hurt my pride a little. I had nothing to say to that. So I quickly changed the subject. Why is there no one around here? After leaving the main street, we found ourselves in the middle of the forest. This is not a residential or commercial district. During the festival, almost no one comes here. I understood. But anyway, this is where we were going. Let's go. Of course. As he entered the forest, Erwin slowed his pace, and it became more of a walking trail. But where exactly are we going? This question appeared belatedly in my mind, but I decided to ask something else first. So, Erwin, does this happen often? Well, there's no way around it. Even after receiving the pure blood, I didn't dedicate myself to my people. Okay, so the answer was yes. I quickly asked one more question, even though I knew it might be something Erwin didn't want to hear. Are there people who say they need to kill you to pass the pure blood to someone else? I know some people think so. Given the times we're in, we need this power more than ever. But don't worry about that. Thanks to you, even the elders can't say much to me. I understood. I looked at Erwin, who gave me an awkward smile, as if to reassure me. Maybe I need to solve this problem before it gets worse. Obviously, we couldn't return the pureblood, so I would either need to offer something of equivalent value, or put the elves in my debt by helping them in a time of crisis. Where are we going? I asked. Ah, it's right there. Sure. Although I didn't know what the destination was, the fact that Erwin had brought me to the Holy Land even though I had passed that reception meant there was a good reason. I decided not to ask any more questions and just enjoyed the surroundings. While doing this, I noticed something interesting. This place, it's not an ordinary forest. Erwin's lips twitched in a wry smile. Ah, did you notice? There are magic circles drawn on the trees, the ground is softer, making it harder to run, and there are structures on the branches that make it easier to attack those below. Is this a defensive structure? Yes, or at least it is now. Now, in the past, this area was also a residential district. After an invasion, the sacred land was reduced to ashes, and this place was rebuilt along with it. An invasion. I didn't need to ask what the event was. She was talking about the Dragonslayer incident. From what I heard, it was around this time that Erwin also lost his parents. We used to live here. It still looks so much like it did before, but it's also changed a lot. Did it change? She chuckled softly. Let's stop talking about this and keep walking. I wondered if I had made a mistake by bringing up the subject, but there was nothing I could do. After walking a little further, we finally reached our destination, a small house built in front of a lake. This is my home, the place where me, my older sister, and my younger sister lived. Well, not that me or my older sister live here anymore. So it's abandoned. No, my younger sister still lives here. The reason I went through all that to bring you here was because of her. Did you bring me here because of your sister? From what I remembered, Erwin didn't have a good relationship with her younger sister. After Daria died and I disappeared, Erwin moved away from home and focused solely on her revenge. It was around this time that she gained the title of Blood Spirit. After we returned from the first underground floor, I started visiting her frequently. Our relationship has improved a bit, but she is very curious about you, sir. I think I get what that was. So she's worried I'm a weirdo. Well, there is a certain preconceived idea about you being a barbarian. I'm sorry. That's not something you need to apologize for. In fact, it was my mistake. Like this. Your family is my family, and I'm just now meeting your sister. Is she in there? Let's go. No matter what kind of person her sister was, I needed to meet her as soon as possible and leave before news of what happened in the city reached her. Surviving the game as a barbarian. Chapter 779. The 13th month, 6/9. Erwin's younger sister was nothing like I had imagined. Daria and Erwin, the older sisters, were tall and slender, so I expected the third sister to be the same. But she is small. She was barely 5 feet tall, perhaps even a little shorter than Raven. What set the mage apart from the elf in front of me, however, was her cold expression. She wasn't chubby by any means, but she still carried some of the weight of childhood. She looks cute, but I probably can't poke her without making her angry, right? In any case, this petite girl didn't look like a 21-year-old at all. That was my first impression of Erwin's younger sister. That look of his, I don't like it. I ended up shrinking without realizing it. Is she the straightforward and honest type? With that look, it was a rare type to see in real life, but that wasn't the most important thing right now. Don't say that. Here, would you like to introduce yourself first? Erwin suggested gently. The little elf puffed out her cheeks and revealed her name. May Forwin in Tertia. I'm Bjorn, son of Yandel. It's a pleasure to meet you, May. I was worried that she wouldn't like me saying her name or something, but thankfully, May didn't complain. Apparently, she was considering her behavior since I was an ally of her sister. Although I didn't know exactly what was going on in his head, as an adult and veteran of years of adventure, I continued the conversation. May, how many times have you entered the maze? 4 times. But then the labyrinth was closed and I could not enter anymore. That must have been frustrating. Not at all. There's nothing good about going into the labyrinth. Also, this was unexpected. I assumed that at her age she would be interested in becoming an adventurer, and I thought starting the conversation that way would be best for both of us. But her reaction wasn't one of irritation, but rather of genuine contempt for the life of an adventurer. You don't want to become an adventurer? I asked. No. Why? Why would I want to? You have to sleep in dirty, cold, hard places every day. The food is horrible, and you have to spend time with other people, whether you like them or not. She wasn't wrong. Thinking about it, if one didn't need a lot of money or didn't have a specific goal, there wasn't much reason to become an adventurer. That was why so few nobles followed this path. And the labyrinth always takes something from us. It would be better if it didn't exist. As someone who knew Erwin's family history, there was nothing I could say to respond to the girl's outburst. Haha, but still, someone has to go in there, right? Erwin said excitedly. The reason we can eat, sleep, and wear whatever we want is thanks to the mana stones we got in the labyrinth. I know. Erwin seemed at a loss for what to do in the face of May's cold response. I got the feeling that her past transgressions against her younger sister meant that Erwin couldn't afford to be harsh with this little child named May. However, every conversation is born from experience. I'm used to dealing with kids like this. With that in mind, I decided to first draw her in with something that would pique her interest. There was a good chance she wouldn't mind something too grandiose, so I chose a topic that was closer to her heart. Tell me, Erwin, have you told her the story of when we met? A little. Well, at that time, I was in trouble, Mr. Yandel helped me, Mr. Yandel. Haha. What's wrong, Mr. Yandel? Erwin gave me another awkward smile. It didn't take me long to understand what was happening. She is embarrassed to call me that in front of her sister. Well, it was true that, Sir, had become more of a nickname by this point. And since we were here to show that I wasn't a weirdo, calling me just, Sir, might be a mistake. Is there something they haven't told me? May asked. She seemed to have become interested in the subject, realizing that there might be something about my first meeting with Erwin that I didn't know. Well, I don't know how much she told you, I teased, leaving the sentence hanging in the air. Do you want to hear the story? The girl hesitated. Then I'll tell you. From that point on, it was easy. I started with my first meeting with Erwin and continued recounting in order all the adventures we had. However, she soon noticed the gaps I was leaving. And the Goblin Forest. May asked me to tell her everything. Although a lot of things happened there, I knew what she wanted to know was about when her older sister, Daria, died. You can tell me, he insisted. I already know most of what happened. I looked at Erwin for permission, and she nodded. So I calmly told the story. It was a longer and more detailed account than any other chapter of our adventures, but it was not difficult to sum up the whole situation in a single sentence. Daria saved her younger sister, Erwin, and died in the process. Unfortunately, the barbaric tales session ended there. May was silent for a long time after the story, and Erwin and I waited patiently until she spoke. If the labyrinth didn't exist, he finally murmured, Daria would still be here with me. I just agreed with her. Maybe that was the case. If Daria hadn't become an adventurer, she probably wouldn't have died that way. But in return, She wouldn't have been there to protect Erwin when she was in danger. Why is everyone so obsessed with the maze? I answered May's next question simply. Because the city is no different. They enter the maze because they don't want to be robbed anymore. Because the city takes something from them every day. Daria and Erwin knew this very well. That was why they both became adventurers. So that nothing else would be taken from them. To protect those who were precious to them. Isn't that why you became an adventurer, even though you say you hate it? May said nothing. From his expression, I could tell he agreed with me in some way, but he didn't want to admit it. I understand. At her age, it's hard to know what you're feeling. It wasn't my place to say something like that to May. I also didn't know what my true feelings were about my current situation. I gave him a sideways smile and gave him some advice instead. May Forwin D. Terja. The labyrinth will open again soon, so try entering it again. You'll find that bad things aren't the only things that happen in the labyrinth. A long period of silence followed once more before she gave her answer. Will I really? I replied without a moment's hesitation. Of course. Because it was the same for me. Erwin, May, and I talked about many things to pass the time, and through that, I began to better understand the dynamics between the two sisters. Want more cookies? I brought some from that famous bakery in. I am not well. Whenever Erwin tried to do something for May, May would try to refuse. They were far from being a close-knit family. This is suffocating. I could clearly see that they cared for each other. So why did they treat each other like this? It was frustrating for me, but there wasn't much I could do. I didn't have enough experience to give advice on family relationships. I'll just observe for now. I took that position and kept listening. A while later, someone knocked on the door. May, are you there? Came a man's voice. It sounded familiar somehow. 10. May immediately stood up and walked to the door, and Erwin let out a strange smile when she saw this. She had noticed it too. May's reaction was completely different from when she had greeted her. May, have you been well? Hey, you weren't even gone that long. Haha. But I can't help but worry, even if it was only for a few hours. The elf patted May's head with a fatherly smile before turning to me in greeting. It's been a while, Baron Yandel. Fortunately, I already knew him. Yes, it's been a while, Beleg Shusha D. Terja. The adventurer considered a hero among the elves, and the brother of Erwin's mother. I had greeted him briefly the last time I attended the race summit. By the way, I heard you came with Erwin, so it's true. Were you looking for me? In a way, I would have come here anyway. My precious niece has come home after so long. Erwin, have you been well? Try. I'm glad to hear that. May I sit down? Do what you want. It's not my house. I shrugged, and Beleg smiled before sitting across from me. I heard the story of what happened in the city on my way here. Unwittingly, we take extremes. I mean, he's Erwin's uncle. I understand your intentions in doing that, but did it have to be that way? I have nothing to say. When I lowered my head in shame, it was Erwin who defended me. Uncle, I'm fine, he said. In fact, I even thanked him. It was a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time. As a tank barbarian, the feeling of being protected by someone. What happened? May's eyes widened, but neither of us responded. I'm going to go out for a bit, she said, taking the hint. You guys can keep talking. May left the house, giving us privacy to talk, and the tension dissipated a bit. She's a good child, Beleg commented, turning to me. It seems so. She also reminds me of her older sister. I'm not talking about May. I'm talking about Erwin. I blinked. Oh, then please take good care of her. No matter how you try to explain the situation, she won't have another chance to marry someone. So take responsibility and, uncle, Erwin shouted. What are you talking about? Erwin, I don't know what you think of me, but I'm your and May's guardian. I need to say the things that need to be said. Isn't that right? There was nothing I could say other than that. Gee, that's true. And I imagine you understood perfectly what I meant. Sure. Then I'm relieved. Please don't take this personally. Just take these words as advice from an adult who loves and cares deeply about Erwin. I had no choice but to nod silently, and thankfully Beleg didn't press me further on the matter. The conversation then moved on to more common topics. Beleg, I want to ask you something. Is public opinion of her bad because she left the Special Forces unit? I can't even lie and say that everything is fine, considering the words coming out of the mouths of some elders. You must have tried really hard. Thank you. I just did what I had to. I want to help a little too. Can you tell me about the Elven power structure? Of course. I can't consider you an outsider anymore, your lordship. He dropped a few hints into the conversation to try to tie me down to something, but the conversation with Beleg had been useful. It had helped me formulate a rough outline of a plan to restore Erwin's public image, and if I had come up with a more detailed plan. Erwin, can you come out for a moment? Also, I need to speak with the Baron in private. Just for a while. Okay. As the conversation was about to end, Beleg sent Erwin out. I couldn't help but feel nervous. This was the guy who had talked about taking responsibility right in front of Erwin. What did he want to tell me now, after he had sent her away? Tell me now, what do you want to talk about? I asked cautiously. Beleg hesitated for a moment before getting straight to the point. Lord Baron, I heard that you possess a resurrection stone. The subject came completely out of the blue. Surviving the game as a barbarian. Chapter 780. The 13th month, 7/9. Resurrection Stone. Even with its vast array of items and abilities, the Resurrection Stone was one of the very few resurrection-related items in Dungeon & Stone. As it could only be obtained on the 9th floor under an extremely low probability and after fulfilling a very specific condition, its rarity was simply inexpressible. Collecting all 9 single-digit numbered items could be considered easier than getting a single one of these stones. In fact, even in Raftania, with its thousands of years of history exploring the labyrinth, the Resurrection Stone was still treated as a legend or a rumor. People weren't even sure that such an item actually existed. Anyway, that wasn't the most important thing at the moment. This guy is talking about something like that. The first emotion I felt when Erwin's uncle mentioned the Resurrection Stone was confusion. It was, to say the least, an odd time to bring it up, and something I never expected him to mention. In the first place, however, as I calmed down and faced the situation head-on, another emotion took over me. Curiosity. No, to be more precise, suspicion. Wait, is this guy Crescent Moon? The assumption hit me out of nowhere, but once it came up, I couldn't just ignore it. After all, my suspicion was not completely unfounded. Elf. Visited high floors. Obsession with the Resurrection Stone. There weren't many people who fit those 3 criteria. Furthermore, considering that the age range of ancient evil spirits was around their early 30s to early 40s, this guy became even more suspicious. Well, there was still one problem. I couldn't just ask if he was Crescent Moon, could I? I apologize if I was too direct. However, Lord Baron, I heard that you prefer frank conversations like this. I paused for a moment to gather my thoughts, and Crescent Moon made a careful apology. I used this time to think some more. How should I respond? There were 2 options. Either I completely deny what he was insinuating, or I confirm his suspicions and hear the details. I thought about it for a moment, but decided on the second option. I had the feeling that he hadn't come to me with an assumption, but with a certainty. Where did you hear that? While it wasn't a full confirmation, my answer was a slight affirmation. As I did so, I noticed a very subtle change in Beleg's expression. A moment of relief, and a slight trace of nervousness. Beleg silently released the breath he was holding before replying. I received an anonymous letter in the middle of the night. An anonymous letter. As I said, I don't know who sent it. However, it even contained a detailed description of Miss Karlstein's history. I concluded that it wasn't just any nonsense, so I came to ask you. Can I take a look at her? Beleg didn't even hesitate and handed me the letter as if he had been waiting for me to ask. Fortunately, it wasn't like the Ghostbusters invitation letter, where the words disappeared after a certain amount of time. I read it all quickly. I knew, but it was not difficult for me to see who had sent the letter to Beleg. I already had some theories before I even read it, but lol, that single word written at the end, as if mocking the reader, was unmistakable proof of the sender's identity. Becco Lee. I was always on alert because I never knew what kind of shit he could be up to, but since that day, I haven't seen any sign of him. For him to be plotting something like this behind the scenes. What is his goal? I didn't know, and that just made it all the more frustrating. Why did Becco pass on information about the resurrection stone to Beleg? I can't figure out what this bastard is trying to do. Beleg seemed to have noticed that my attention was fixed on the last word, for he added. From what I've heard, it's one of the words used by evil spirits. I understand. So, it's true. You have the resurrection stone. Yes. Denying it at this point would be ridiculous, so I just confessed. However, even with the certainty he already seemed to have before coming here, the confirmation still shocked him, judging by his excited reaction. Is that true? My heart sank even further. I would probably never meet another elf who showed such suspicious interest in the resurrection stone. This guy had to be Crescent Moon. Not that he had ever been exactly normal in my eyes, but for Erwin's uncle to be an evil spirit. If he was an evil spirit, why did he care so much about Erwin and her family? From what I heard, he treated them as if they were his own nieces. No, more than that, as if they were his own daughters. At that moment, we heard the front door open with a click. Voices reached us. One was Erwin trying to stop May, and the other was May's angry outburst. We'll continue this conversation later. I'll visit you personally in the near future. With that, Beleg ended the conversation, disappointment in his eyes, and I just nodded. Some time passed. May. Uncle and the Baron are talking in the room. Accompanied by Erwin's desperate voice, May threw open the bedroom door and walked in. Her breathing was heavy with anger, and when I felt the subtle threat emanating from her, I just nodded silently. She heard what happened in town. Being hit while already expecting the blow was very different from being hit by surprise. Since I had time to prepare my heart for the attack, the damage was less. I thought you were a decent person. May looked at me with disdain before muttering under her breath, scoundrel. All the favorability I had built up was thrown in the trash. We were practically expelled to escape May's wrath and immediately returned to the sacred land. Whenever we came to the city for some reason, we would sometimes sleep there, an option that Erwin asked me if we would do this time as well. Sleeping is done at home. I didn't want to sleep in the city with the festival filling the streets, and I also didn't want to spend money. There are only 2 more days left until the festival. As we rode in the walled carriage and looked out over the city in its festive throes, I had some time to think to myself. Even as the day drew to a close, the city below was still bright enough for me to see everything, and it was so full of laughter and voices that the joy down below could be felt all the way up here. Erwin, don't you want to enjoy the festival too? Not really. I don't really like noisy places. Serious. Well, I think it would be fun to walk the streets with you, sir, but let's do that next year. I'll skip it this time. Why? I don't think you're ready yet, unlike me. What is there to prepare for a festival? Hee hee. You need to prepare yourself. I needed to prepare myself too, you know. I was speechless when her bright voice came along with that sad smile. Then let's go later. Later. When we're tired of being sad and want to laugh and smile as much as we want. Okay, let's do this. Yes, I heard this from Daria in the past, but they say that if you get married during the festival, you will live a happy life without having to worry about money. Oh, really? Ignoring the saying, I realized that Erwin had recovered quite a bit. Even though no one else mentioned her, she talked about her sister first and even managed to smile. As we continued exchanging small talk, our carriage arrived at the Holy Land. Naturally, the Holy Land was also noisy and lively. After all, the barbarians were also enjoying the festival. Although some warriors went out into the city to enjoy themselves, it was tradition for warriors to enjoy the festival primarily in the sacred land, unless there was a reason to be elsewhere. Then, I'll go in. I'm a little tired. Yes, today was fun. Get a good rest. After parting ways with Erwin, I went to my quarters and listened as the noise began to fade into silence. Well, it was quiet compared to the forest filled with the sounds of the festival, so it wasn't that quiet. Brace's law. Enough. This is a quiet area. Emily Rains will come if you make too much noise. The reason this place was able to be relatively peaceful was thanks to Amelia. Something about the residential area needing to be quieter as some people might want to sleep. While the logic made sense, the real reason was probably because of me. That woman is so cruel. That's right. This is a festival, how does that make sense? And nobody here wants to sleep anyway. At this moment, a familiar voice cut through the noise of the barbarians. What did you just say? Yeah, Emily Rains. When Amelia appeared like a ghost, the warriors who were complaining at will began to point fingers quickly. I didn't say anything. Seriously, I'm a good barbarian, quiet in the silent area. The only person who spoke was Kaizan, Merrick's second son. Why you? Kaizan, Merrick's second son, is a foolish warrior. He could have gone to the noisy area if he wanted to laugh and talk, but he had to come to the quiet area. I was curious as to what she had done to make the warriors terrified by her mere presence, but it wasn't something entirely unknown to me. Amelia was capable of restraining even Einar. There was no way an ordinary warrior could deal with her. Stay if you want to sleep, and go to the noisy area if you want to talk. You understood. I'm going out. Sorry. The warriors fled as fast as they could. Still, it was pretty funny. I could understand the barbarians acting like that, but Amelia also talking about quiet and noisy areas was ironic to say the least. Are you back? I stuttered, caught red-handed. Come in and rest. Okay. Our gazes met briefly before I went inside to wash up and go straight to bed. However, no matter how long I kept my eyes closed, sleep would not come. By this point, I was struggling to clear my mind. Bjorn. Einar. I called. What's wrong? It's dawn. What are you doing in the quiet area? Everyone is having fun. You're too old to grow up sleeping early. I'm tired after going out. You've been away for 3 days. Come today and have fun with us. I smiled as I saw Einar entering pleading mode. But at least she didn't threaten to leave the Anabata clan. That didn't mean I was going to enjoy the festival. Honestly, if I couldn't sleep, I planned on going to the graves, like I had been doing for the past few days. However, Bjorn, the warriors need you. That one sentence made me change my mind. I sighed. This was the first festival after such a major incident, and I was the reigning chief. Not showing up even once would be a bit. Okay, I'll go, so stop whining. Oh, really? That's great. Everyone will love it. After sending Einar away, I quickly changed into the traditional barbarian garb. Although, dress, probably wouldn't be the correct verb. To be precise, I took off my other clothes. After all, traditional barbarian attire began by removing the top half. Hurry, I'm sure everyone will be excited to see you. No, I hoped that wouldn't happen. Sure. With that, I was dragged by Einar to the forest where the festival was taking place, towards that noisy area. When I arrived, my breath caught. Brace's law. Oh, the boss. The boss is Hiri, Bjorn, son of Yandil. The greatest warrior in the world. The brilliant monster. I was only safe because the barbarian eardrum was resilient. Most people would have lost their hearing from the noise these warriors made. I also understood why 99% of the people here were barbarians, even though there were a significant number of humans in the Holy Land. Right, there. Someone is fighting over there. The first place Einar took me to at the festival was where two warriors were fighting as if they wanted to kill each other. Die. I'll pull out all your teeth. Break his arm. It doesn't matter. He won't die from this. Two warriors were fighting seriously, and countless others were watching the combat. With that, I grabbed a warrior next to me and asked, "But why are they fighting?" "Who knows? Not me. I'm not very curious about these things." The warrior looked at me like I was a fool before going back to watching the fight. Okay, so the fight was more important than me, huh? It was funny how they praised me as a great warrior and then ignored me when they were distracted. But honestly, it was understandable. Fighting was the greatest form of entertainment for the barbarians. The criteria for how fun the festival was is how many fights you had. Well, it was pretty fun. Our warriors wouldn't lose to anyone in melee combat, and PvP was much fiercer at low levels than at high levels. In the end, the red-haired warrior who counterattacked with an elbow to the chin won the battle. However, before everyone lost interest and moved on to something else. "Listen up," Einar suddenly shouted, drawing everyone's attention. "As you can see, the boss is here." They probably had no idea what she was going to say, but the warriors reacted instinctively, as something was about to happen. Ooh, Brace's law. Well, I also thought something would happen, so I just stood there waiting. Why am I feeling so restless? And, as always, this concern came true. The chief will face all the warriors tonight. Wait, who said I? Oh, but the boss is the great warrior. Even I can't defeat the boss. Fortunately, the warriors didn't seem so enthusiastic. If it continued like this absurd idea might fall apart on its own. Don't worry, it doesn't matter which part of the body it is. If you can make it bleed, even just a single drop, you will be the winner. Einar quickly established an advantage for them. Oh, if so, perhaps it is possible. Of course, the fundamental question has not yet been answered. But why should we fight him? We are people too. It hurts when we get hit. Especially when it's the boss. For some reason, the warriors seemed smarter today, and it seemed like Einar didn't expect that either. Well, it's a chance to fight the boss. You honorable warriors should, naturally, want to. After hesitating for a moment, Einar closed his eyes with determination before shouting. 1 house. The winner will get 3 houses. Nothing more needed to be said. Houses. It's worth risking my life. The glow in the warrior's eyes changed. Surviving the game as a barbarian. Chapter 781. The 13th month, 8/9. Heavy breaths infused with heat. Fierce eyes, filled with an unshakable fighting spirit. Fingers trembling and shoulders shaking with excitement. The barbaric desire for real estate was as intense as it had ever been. Or rather, as intense as it had been since I had stirred up this obsession in our sacred land by introducing the concept of property. From then on, the understanding that owning a house was equivalent to being a great warrior was engraved in the minds of each of them. And this, common wisdom, only deepened over time. Thinking back, it was a natural outcome. Most of the barbarians who lived outside the Holy Land usually settled in the nearest district, District 7. However, both District 7 and District 8 had been reduced to ashes and rubble, and Commelby, the next viable place to live, had become so expensive that the warriors could not afford to live there. Still, while the next district over, District 9, had survived the war. And as a result was a much better option than the expensive Commelby. If I have a house, I won't have to sleep outside. Now it costs 5 times as much to live in District 9. That's right, and it's so far from the Holy Land that I have no friends there. In fact, most of the barbarians had returned to the Holy Land, forced to live in makeshift communities, little better than complete destitution. The war had displaced countless people, creating an absurd number of refugees who filled every inn in the city. With the price of rooms skyrocketing and the maze still closed, the warriors had no way to pay rent. At least they can get by now because they know how to work in construction. Most of the warriors were just surviving on menial jobs in the city. And now, a house was being offered as a prize. I challenge him first. No, me, I'll challenge him. The words exploded from the warriors in waves, quickly spreading the news to all the barbarians in the Holy Land. If I say I'm not going to participate, their trust in me will plummet. And, if I was honest with myself, their approval definitely influenced my decision, but above all, I didn't want to see my barbarian warriors discouraged when we should have been celebrating. Einar, I called. And no. She rejected before I could say another word. You have to fight them. Bjorn, you can at least give us a day of your time. You are our boss. Calm down. I'm not saying I won't do it. Wait. Why, you're really going? Yes, but let's go somewhere else. The field here is too small. Oh, then we can go to the proving grounds. With that, we moved with all the warriors to the field of trials. It's been a while since I've been here. The field of trials was a huge pit in the middle of the forest where warriors battled nobly among themselves, and also the place where I rose to the position of chief. I dropped my gun and raised my fists. Okay, come on. The look in the warriors' eyes changed from eager determination to proud defiance. We know we are fighting because there is a house at stake, they seem to say, but to fight barehanded. Are you underestimating us? Not even the boss can win with empty hands. Shut up and fight. Brace's law. And so, the competition began. Even without using a weapon, none of the warriors dared to go easy on me. The sea challenger this time is Belikta, son of Ryuman. The dragon hunter Belikta. Woo. The warriors who had made a name for themselves within the tribe were the first to challenge me, and I faced them with everything I had. Perhaps it goes without saying, but why is it so hard to make me bleed? The fights lasted longer than expected because, although my opponents were strong, no matter who they were, no one could make a single drop of my blood flow. The core of the barbarian shield's construction was its high physical resistance, so for most barbarians, who relied on physical damage, it was practically impossible to even cause a scratch to me. I lost. The boss is a formidable warrior. You fought well. No one can defeat the boss. He's a monster. A monster. As the named challengers failed one after another, the warriors who watched with anticipation began to lose hope as they realized the futility of their goal. What now? I haven't even used gigantification yet. However, I wasn't the only one who noticed the mood crumbling. When I looked at Einar, I saw that she was also dealing with the same problem. I remembered Einar after the coming-of-age ceremony, when she had become the leader of our graduating class and had gotten lost. On the way to town, she had the same expression now. Looks like I'll have to help her this time too. Let's take a break, I announced, interrupting the fighting for a moment, and went to Einar. When I gave her an idea to rekindle the warrior's spirit, she immediately passed it on with enthusiasm. Let's stop the fight here. Let's all drink. To drink. The rules are simple. Everyone will drink at the same time, and whoever lasts the longest wins. Are the prizes the same? Of course. If they can outdrink Bjorn, all the warriors will receive a house each. Wait, one house each. But I don't remember saying that. Hooray! Brace's law. The sudden change in the prize left me stunned, but it was too late to turn back. This shall be called the drink battle, Einar declared. The sacred drink battle. Drink battle. Drink battle. Hooray! The warriors roared in approval at the name Einar had called out. Whatever. I didn't feel confident enough to ruin their party, so I kept quiet. After a brief pause to prepare ourselves, the drinking battle, the sacred drinking battle, which had the potential to become a new barbaric tradition, began. Okay, First sip. The thousands of warriors who had descended upon the field of proving raised their mugs at Einar's command. First sip. Then everyone emptied their glasses in one gulp. We repeated this several times. 2 sips, 3 sips, 4 sips, 5 sips. As we continued drinking, more and more warriors began to fall. Hick, Blurg, Karubo, son of Bullock, vomited. Get out, Droga. We are drinking fast, and many warriors were already drunk from the festival. I can beat them at this pace. The thought excited me even more. Furthermore, if over 1,000 barbarians somehow defeated me in this contest, the tribe would immediately go bankrupt. As the chief, I needed to prevent that future from becoming a reality at all costs. Okay, drink up. 16, 17, 18. As the volume of liquid in my stomach increased, I began to feel drunk taking over. How long has it been since I've been this drunk? In truth, I didn't know what my limit was. I'd never been completely blacked out from drinking so much with this body. Furthermore, after increasing my natural regeneration and poison resistance attributes, I recovered very quickly even when I got drunk, so it was even harder for me to pass out. Right, that's Cup 73. More and more warriors were disqualified because they vomited, fainted or left the place to relieve themselves, and the pace of drinking only accelerated. After all, with fewer people, less time was needed to prepare the drinks. Serve. It's Cup 100. How come we've already reached the 100th glass? I looked around, noticing that the number of warriors holding their drinks had decreased significantly. I think I see about 100. I didn't know the exact number, but what I did know was that my stomach was getting bloated. It started to protest that there was no more room, and I could feel its contents threatening to come back up. 100 people means 100 houses, and in money that equals. The total brought me back to reality. I activated my skill immediately. It was the most logical decision, actually. If the problem was that my stomach was already too full of alcohol. You have activated gigantification. I just needed to increase the size of my stomach. My enlarged belly immediately felt better, and the pressure on my bladder, which was about to explode, also decreased. Still, the second hurdle came sooner than I expected. 150 cup. I was going to die. 30 people. Who the hell were these guys? Did they have a subspace in their stomach? Or were they drinking something that wasn't alcohol? Although my mind immediately jumped to suspicion, I thankfully realized that they weren't exactly in their right minds. M1 more. Hee. Home. My home. Even without their sanity intact, these warriors could not let go of their desire for a home and were holding on. I forced myself to focus on the sight of their zombified states. Just a little more. I was no stranger to resistance. Frozen rock was far worse than this. 151. I drank. Even with my vision spinning, I saw some warriors collapse. 152. My intuition, honed by countless battles, told me that this was the turning point. 153. Just a few more glasses. These few would determine the winner. 154. My intuition did not fail. Many more warriors fell. However, the next moment reminded me of a fundamental truth of the world. 155. They were suffering as much as I was. In this cold world of competition, the winner and the loser were decided in a single moment of perseverance. 156. And I always had to be the winner. Because the loser always lost something. 150. Oh no, this was getting dangerous. How many people were left? 160. The sounds grew distant, and my vision narrowed into a tunnel of light. The moment I realized I had reached my limit, my narrowed vision focused on a single warrior. I planned to collapse when there were about 3 people left, but since I was so drunk, I only noticed now that there was only one. Also, it was then that I noticed something very strange as I observed the last remaining warrior. That guy. I was wondering how he managed to hold so much liquid in a mortal body. Is he drinking while he pisses himself? How could someone like that exist? Even barbarians had limits. My jaw dropped as I witnessed an action that violated every form of culture, civility, and morality built throughout the history of civilization. Not of horror, but of wonder. Awe, shock. Shock at his concentration that ignored all natural laws, just for victory. And hidden within that, Pishwu, the flow, to not prevent anything from entering your body, and let everything leave without obstacles. Yes, that was the sublime truth, the supreme, the ultimate duality of man. That, nature felt no shame. Nature didn't care about rules. Nature simply existed, just like the great mountains. This was a losing battle from the start. How could I defeat someone who had reached the point of becoming one with nature? I accepted my defeat with humility. I lost. That was the last thing I remember. When I woke up, the sun had already set. My body was stiff, but I didn't feel as hungover as I expected. In fact, both my body and mind felt fine. Well, relatively speaking. I need to go to the bathroom first. The image of the sky above the sky that I witnessed before I passed out stayed with me as I made my way to the golden throne. However, my trip to the bathroom announced to the world that I was back. "Looks like you're finally awake," commented a voice. "Emily, drink this. It's honey water." "Thank you. Were you waiting for me outside?" "Of course not," she replied after a brief hesitation. "I suspected you would wake up around this time, and I happened to hear you as I passed by." "Oh, what a relief to hear that." I quickly drank the honey water before asking, "How long did I sleep?" "1 day. So today is the last day of the festival, right? Are you disappointed because you spent the last day sleeping?" "Not at all. The festival needs to end for something new to begin. In fact, I'm kind of happy." Amelia gave me an irritated look at this, and I quickly changed the subject. Besides, I was curious about something. "So, what's the name of the guy who beat me?" I asked, feigning disinterest. The scene of the endless stream was still vivid in my mind, but unfortunately, I couldn't see his face during the competition. "Vector. From what I heard, he's Kilto's third son." "Vector, third son of Kiltau. Why does that name sound familiar? Where have I heard that before?" "Oh, now I remembered. I saw him when I first became chief and presided over the coming-of-age ceremony." I immediately identified him as a newcomer from the way he scanned the room with a rigid expression. "No, wait." My body stiffened as if it had been poisoned by a basilisk, and a cold sweat ran down my back. Amelia noticed my change in expression immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked, worried. "Are you hurt?" I could no longer avoid the terrible truth I had just realized. Vector, third son of Kiltau. The barbarian who demonstrated the sublime truth of man's supreme duality in becoming one with nature. The absolute master who had left his mark on the history of beauty. Yes, that could only be it. "Nah, impossible," I muttered to myself, mockingly. Maybe I was wrong all along. There's no way he's a modern guy. There is no way to. Surviving the game as a barbarian. Chapter 782, the 13th month 9/9. After telling Amelia I was going back to sleep and sending her away, I lay down on the bed, but as I expected, sleep never came. It wasn't that my recent deep rest had chased away my tiredness, it was just I hadn't been able to sleep well lately. Time passed quickly during the day when I could keep myself busy, but at night it wasn't the same. As darkness fell, thoughts began to weigh on me. I sighed and, as I had been doing for some time now, I went out for a walk and began my nightly patrol throughout the sacred land. Despite it being the last day of the festival, the sacred land was still alive with noise. Brace's law. Ha 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 ha. Instinctively, I headed in the opposite direction of the barbarians' roars, my feet naturally taking me to the same place I always ended up. Maybe they were another reason I kept coming here. The cold winds of the 13th month blew, brushing against my skin. I stopped, tilting my head back to look up at the sky. A crescent moon hung overhead. Staring up at it, I could almost fool myself into thinking I was back on Earth, but the nagging feeling told me this was a completely different world from the one I knew. The reason was very simple. A closer look revealed that the shape of the moon was a little off. Because Raftania doesn't have a full moon. Every night, the sky always showed the same moon. Not that the full moon was completely absent. On rare occasions, it did appear, such as total solar eclipses on Earth. I wasn't an astronomer, so I had no idea how or why this happened, and honestly, it wasn't a question that mattered to me in this magical and mysterious world. A soft crunch broke the silence. "Who's there?" My voice came out aggressively, causing a barbarian warrior to emerge from the forest, scratching the back of his neck in embarrassment. When I saw who it was, I was genuinely surprised. "You, Vector, third son of Kiltau." At least it wasn't Beko Lee. I let my guard down, but still, I never expected to run into him by chance. "Oh, I didn't think you'd remember my name. It's an honor, boss," he shouted excitedly into the silent night, thrilled that I had called his name. There was no reason to blame him for the volume, of course. That was just the barbarian way. Since fate brought us to this meeting, I decided to strike up a conversation. "Of course I remember. You were the warrior who defeated me. Ha ha ha." He laughed after a slight pause. "If you drank like me, boss, you would be able to hold out a lot longer too." "Yeah. No thanks. If I did that, the whole town would know that Baron Yandel pissed himself from drinking too much." "So why are you here?" He hesitated before answering. "Aha. This is the place where my house will be built, so I came to see it with my own eyes." "What? Since I'm going to have a house now, I'm too excited to sleep. I'm going to live here until my house is ready. Because this is my home now." Oh okay. But why did you choose this place?" "It's near the cemetery. Because the wind here is pleasant and refreshing." The more we talked, the more it felt like I was losing to him somehow. Had I really been misunderstanding him all along? The feeling only grew. Is this guy really from the modern era? Perhaps this was how the evil spirit hunters from the Ministry of Security felt when they saw me. Since they hadn't witnessed my failure during the coming-of-age ceremony and had only seen the current me, they probably didn't even think that I was an evil spirit. Which reminded me, by the way, did you choose the shield during your coming-of-age ceremony? "Oh, yes, I did. I didn't think you would remember that too. It's an honor. And how was it? Do you still use the shield?" "I traded it for the axe. I chose the shield because you chose it, but it didn't suit me." "Did you choose because I chose?" "Bjorn, son of Yandel, is the greatest warrior in history. I wanted to follow in his footsteps. Well, I gave up because it was too hard to get essences." What a funny guy. How could someone who opened his eyes during the coming-of-age ceremony know who I was? I smiled, looking down at him. But I still think he's a player. After talking to him, I became even more certain of this. As a modern man, it was kind of embarrassing to admit, but I used to be just like that. Not in the sense of the supreme duality of man, of course. But a long time ago, I used to act exactly like Vector was acting now. Whenever I crossed paths with the boss, I would stiffen up and try to act even more like a barbarian. Even though we hadn't talked for long, I had a feeling. This guy is going to live a long time. Losing himself in the role of a barbarian, and with that dogged determination to do whatever it took to achieve his goals, people like him did not die easily. "But what are you doing here, Chief?" he asked, changing the subject before he realized something. "Oh, were you going to the cemetery again?" No, I was just patrolling." "Oh, then good luck. I'm hungry, so I'm going to sleep." Vector seemed uncomfortable in my presence, but I didn't intend to let him off the hook so easily. I'll give you some dried meat, so stay and talk a little. Oh, really? Thank you. As I thought, the chief is a great and wise warrior. A small negative point for the hesitation. Well, his acting as a barbarian was still acceptable. So, what do you want to talk about? Vector asked, trying to probe for more information. Although he tried to act like a naive barbarian, his curiosity was evident. I didn't blame him. I had simply struck up a conversation out of nowhere, so it was natural that he was anxious and suspicious about my intentions. Nothing much. I just want to know what's bothering you. Or what worries me. Vector looked confused. Instead of talking about my concerns, I was offering help with his advice he hadn't even asked for. Tell me, I demanded enthusiastically. What worries you? No, I don't have anything like that. Nonsense. Everyone has problems. Speak up. As your boss, I have the right to listen. Your right, not duty, he muttered. I must have misheard that last part, but it wasn't important, so I ignored it. Vector looked at me with a strange look, as if he was realizing, so this boss is a real barbarian. That bothered me a little. I didn't want to be seen as the odd one out when he was the guy who peed himself. I cleared my throat and demanded, anyway, just say it. Good. Now, the weight of my authority as his boss overcame him, and Vector finally told me his concern. Well, I'm worried about a friend. Oh, who is this friend of yours? A human ally I worked with before the labyrinth closed. His name is Hans Elleburn. What? Vector stared at me, surprised. Why that reaction? Do you know him? No, I just felt like saying that. So, what's up with this friend of yours? I met him in town a little while ago, and he told me he found a great opportunity and that I should start a business with. Don't do that, but I didn't even say what the opportunity was. Shut up about opportunities. Did this guy have a problem in his head? Why was he getting involved with a Hans? I said no, so it's no. I infused my words with murderous intent to shock him into compliance, and Vector nodded frantically in agreement, shaken. You understood. I won't do it. Good. You should have just given up from the start. But can you tell me why? He stuttered. That name is bad luck. He gave me a look that clearly said, what the hell is this guy talking about? Still, it was only for a moment, so I ignored it. Okay, so your first problem is solved. Tell me about the second one. Second? He repeated, confused. But I don't have any more. No, you definitely do. Money. There aren't many ways to get it. That doesn't count. So what counts if? Think carefully. If you can't think of one, remember it. And if you can't remember, ask your heart. Do you really have nothing that bothers you? When I pressed him again, Vector hesitated, probably realizing he needed to say something to move the conversation forward. Fortunately, when he finally spoke, his next problem was much more interesting. I want the labyrinth to reopen. Like I said, money problems are not problems. That's not what I mean, he interrupted. I want to get stronger. This war has made me want it even more. Oh, many of my warrior friends, they died in that war. If I were stronger, I could have protected them. I nodded, silently listening to her genuine emotions. As I figured, the house was just an excuse. He was wandering the cemetery grounds just like me. It wasn't your fault you couldn't protect them. I know that. I know. Everyone has to do what they have to do to survive in this world. But I have a lot of regrets. If they were still alive, they could also laugh and enjoy this festival, and we always wanted to have a home. And now you will have one soon. Yes, but I have no more friends to share it with. Something crossed my mind at that moment. Maybe, just maybe, that was why he drank until he pissed himself. Even when he felt like he was going to explode, even when he wanted to give up or faint, he managed to hold on to see that dream come true. That's my second problem. I understand. Now that he had revealed his true thoughts to me, Vector's expression finally relaxed. What should I do? Tell me, Chief. There was even a faint gleam of anticipation in his eyes. He hoped I could dispel his troubles with a clear and ingenious answer. I have responded to your expectation. Make new friends. Also. And get stronger. So you don't lose them again. He didn't answer. Okay. Your second problem is solved. I'll go. I'm hungry. After successfully resolving the problems of a young warrior I met by chance, my steps became a little lighter as I headed towards my destination. The cold winds howled, lifting the leaves dried by the winter cold and making them dance in the air. The barbarians used to say that this was the spectacle of ancient warriors, who fought each other for entertainment after becoming spirits. It was a surprisingly poetic expression for barbarians. The barbarians did not bury their dead. Instead, they practiced something called celestial burial, where they let the wind and rain scatter their bodies until nothing was left. The remains of a warrior became nutrients for the land and the trees that grew on it. Not that building a tomb would prevent that from happening. Brown Rottmiller, Versailles Gowland, James Calla. Like every day before, I stood before these three tombstones, trying to find an answer to this suffocating feeling in my heart as the wind howled around me. But of course, just standing there didn't automatically give me an answer. Even in this world where ghost-type monsters existed, the voices of the dead did not speak through the wind, whispering their final wishes in a way that I could hear and finally understand. No, these spiritual events did not exist. I was living proof of that. They are gone. They no longer existed in this world. And I was left behind, haunted by worries they would never have again. What would they wish for me, the person who was still left? Reol Warg Dwaki. His wish for me was simple. He just told me to take care of Misha. And yet, in the end, I didn't do a very good job of fulfilling his request. He probably wouldn't have liked seeing the two of us so far apart. At least I managed to avenge his death. Although, now that I think about it, that was more for me than for him. Instead, I stood there, at another's grave, silent as the grave itself. While the entire city was filled with the sounds of the festival, those who had already left had no way to enjoy it. Festivals were for the living. The wind howled. Suddenly, I remembered the conversation I had with Vector not long ago. If they were still alive, they could also laugh and enjoy this festival. I couldn't agree more. Whenever something good happened to me, the first thing I thought about was those who were no longer here to experience it with me. What would it be like if Dwaki was still here? The dwarf would have pulled some stupid prank, and Dwaki would have turned red with rage. What would it be like if Rottmiller were still alive? Well, maybe he used the festival as a chance to deepen his relationship with Shaven Emor. If Versal Gowland, if James Calla, if all those who have gone before me were still here. What would it be like? I stood there for a long time, lost in thoughts that screamed for no answer. It was all just a figment of my imagination. No one could know what it would have been like. That future is already gone, erased. Maybe that was why I felt so much regret and disappointment whenever I remembered them. I'm tired of this. Finally, I gave voice to the resentment buried deep within my heart. This world was wrong. Earth or Raftania, it didn't matter. In the end, the two were the same thing. Maybe it was just the way life worked, a fundamental truth that couldn't be changed, but that didn't change the fact that it was wrong. Humans, barbarians, Therians, elves. I know that. I know. Everyone has to do what it takes to survive in this world. This was a world of survival. I was tired of. That's when it hit me. A realization of what I really wanted. I didn't just want to survive. I wanted to live, living with the people who are precious to me. A small, wry smile appeared on my lips. It was just a wish, something any pessimist would scoff at, saying, a kind world. How could such a thing exist? But who cares what they think? I was a barbarian. If my teeth broke, I would bite them with my gums. If my head had a problem, I would simply solve it. And if I wanted to scream, I would scream. There was no need to overthink, even about something of this magnitude. If this world didn't exist, I would simply make it exist. There are many things I still need to do. The tombstone stood motionless before me as my mind filled with plans and possibilities. Then, from somewhere in the distance, cheers echoed. I looked at the time. Open black lens bracket 0 close black lens bracket. This troubled year had finally come to an end.